Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing okay at this time, and I want to welcome you back to Eva's Echo. So I'll be just talking about the blog that I wrote this month. Um, just kind of hard to know where to start, really. I mean, I'm guessing that everybody has seen what has happened to George Floyd by now and what's going on in America, and it's just also mind boggling. I mean, how and why was this allowed to happen? And these people, like in police uniform, they're supposed to protect people and to make sure that everybody is safe. So why were they doing this to this man? It just makes absolutely no sense. And it's I remember, like, when Obama was first elected, I was 17 at the time. I would have been in secondary school, and I just remember thinking, like, this is just amazing. There's going to be just a massive change, and the US has progressed so much and has given the world an example on like how we can make a change as well, how anybody can do anything.
The next first family of the United States of America.
All this stuff coming out, like, has just it's just proven that all premature, really. And of course, Ireland, we have so much to answer for as well. Like, when it comes to racism and direct provision, Céad Míle Fáilte. I just saw in the news this week that a secondary school here are going under an investigation for complaints about racism made by past pupils. It just really, really, really shows that we have such a long way to go. Recent ad campaign was played in the cinemas just at the start of this year, just addressing racism. So I'm just going to play a short clip of that and let you have a look.
Just look at me and spit on my face.
What was I supposed to do?
I would love for there to be an app that reports racism.
Brave man, he don't get no fucking
Fuck off, bacteria. Fuck off.
On the other hand, there's direct provision. There are approximately 6,000 people living in direct provision in Ireland. 30% of those are children. Anyone who is in direct provision, they get an allowance of €38.80 a week. They have no right to work. They have no access to higher education. And some can be living in direct provision for up to 2 years. 2 years. Somebody could get a master's degree in that length of time. Imagine going into another country thinking that you'd get a better life, make a better life for yourself. Waiting 2 years on €38.80 a week to get you by. What is humane about that? We have had like a tough history when, for example, the Troubles and the maltreatment from the church. My grandfather, he was from County Tyrone. He had to flee his hometown during the first Troubles. I remember seeing clips from reeling in the years and back to that era, and just seeing all these people just packing up all their furniture, all their clothes, anything and everything that they could get their hands on and just fleeing. And I just can't help but think, of my granddad who had to do the same thing. And my grandmother, who he happened to marry a few years later, when her mother passed away, a priest came to her house. Herself and her siblings, they would have been living with her father and her uncle. So the priest came into the house and they wanted to take the children away because in their eyes, her father and her uncle couldn't raise them up. So they had to run away from the house and hide. Like all these recent events that have really made me reflect as well, and have we really moved on? And Irish theatre and Irish arts, they have portrayed these hard times. Like in Christ Deliver Us by Thomas Kilroy, he would have drawn attention to the oppression from the Catholic Church. The main character, Winnie, she would have been just a fairly young girl, not even 14, 15. She was just stripped away from her innocence. She was taken advantage of by another character, Michael, and she ended up getting pregnant. I mean, she was definitely taken advantage of, like she didn't even know what sex was. She was supposed to be taken away like to one of the laundries, but for some reason that didn't happen, and she ended up giving birth by the river where she used to hang out with Michael, and she passed away there. Things like this are not ancient history to hear. Like when I was just talking about Winnie there, I couldn't help but think of that girl in Longford. It was just really saddening just to think of those young women who they couldn't go ask for help for fear of being exiled or like just taken away. Still have a good bit to go, like when it comes to like a women's agency, and I know there was the passment of the 8th Amendment, like, but every household is different. Like, one household that may be like, so they may allow that agency like for that young girl, like where one next door like may not so much. Another mentionable one is Steve McQueen's Hunger. Absolutely fantastic performance by Michael Fassbender, by the way, if anybody hasn't seen it. Fassbender, he played Bobby Sands, but Sands, he was treated like a criminal prisoner himself, and his fellow prisoners, they were protesting to be political prisoners. This does resonate with how the current US protesters are being treated. They're being treated like thugs. They're being called thugs and they're being criminalised. Another recent example would be co-founder of Eva's Echo, Rena Bryce. She's written about the LGBT community, like both in Jungle Door and in Vlogger. In Jungle Door, it brings up the question as to how bisexual people are treated in comparison to their lesbian and gay counterparts. And are they really accepted into the LGBTQ plus community? Like an example of this would have been the character I played, Michelle. She was in a relationship with Louise, but she identified herself as bi, and she ended up marrying a straight man. So like when we were doing characterization work, it really did become questionable whether she was accepted by the LGBTQ community, and may have also contributed to herself and Louise parting ways. And also Vlogger, the character of Mia, she would have been labelled as a lipstick lesbian. Now sometimes this is often ridiculed in the LGBTQ community. I've seen it firsthand, and sometimes Mia would have been harassed by her YouTube audience, and she would have been ridiculed for her sexuality and her appearance as well, because she portrayed herself as a typical girly girl. Like, now uniform still has to be staged yet. Post-production, I do hope that it does spark a fire, like to motivate somebody to want to make a change. I mean, that was one of the reasons that I wrote it was to give a voice to women from different backgrounds. Also exploring like my own opinions and thoughts on femininity. I'm still educating myself on. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it or anything, but I had an interesting conversation recently, and a question was put to me asking what if my own writing was to be performed by a woman of a different background. It just got me thinking, like, what would that do to the text? What would that actor bring to it? What sort of things from their life would they bring into that, and how would that translate to the audience? I'd absolutely love to see a woman of a different background or of a different colour perform Uniform or star in any other plays that I've written or intend to write. A main inspiration for Uniform was the Faces of Eve and the Hecate sisters. This was to portray the many masks that women are obliged to wear. And to work with somebody from a different background, religion or country or a creed, it would reveal a lot more about, other women that I didn't even think about when first writing Uniform, and I would love to see that. I'm looking for recommendations on plays, books and documentaries that are relative to the current times now. And if anybody knows anything, like, please comment below. And I just want to emphasise that we at Eva's Echo are always looking for people from different backgrounds to work with. So please apply to our next casting call or submit your play, because we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to work with you. Just to wrap this up, I just want to pass on my sympathies to anybody who's been affected by any of the issues raised, or any of the current times right now, and that we're all in this together, and it is up to us to make a change. And please, if you can, please donate to the worthy causes linked below. And don't forget to check out the written blog on evasecho.com, and check out all of our social medias. Thank you guys.